Man, what's with all these crazy London fans? Like, I try to make videos on mainline openings like your Catalans, your Spanishers, your Open Sicilians, and they're not even getting any views. All you can hear these people saying is, London, London, give us more London. We need to fix London every single day so we can win the London the lazy way. So here I am, I'm doing a video on the London system. You finally broke me, you made me cover the London so that you're not just playing it like random, like noob ways, like playing H3 at random moments, like just shuffling around the board, praying the opponent's going to leave a piece on pre. No, that's not how you play the London, but to see how Magnus Carlsen actually plays it instead. That's what it's all about. We play London because Carlsen said that he can win with it, not just because he's Magnus Carlsen, but because it's actually kind of a half decent opening that the engine doesn't completely hate. Illingworth chess, the best to improve your chess. What's up guys, it's GM Max here, and this video is all about learning the London system. Now, some of you might know some of my earlier videos I did, like one where I was covering d4, d5, bishop f4, so I can refer you to that for the coverage of d5. Here we're going next level, we're going to like part 2 or part 3? I guess I don't know whether the 60-second video counts a part. But all these random videos are going to be in the description, or they're going to be suggested at the top when I finally figure out how to get this feature working, or you hire someone who does. And that's also a good reason for you guys to smash that like button on the video as well. It supports me and allows me to pay for a virtual assistant that can do all of these little tasks so that I can use the time to make more top quality videos for you. Anyway, so here instead of looking at d5, we're going to look at knight f6 and see how to play the London against the various Indian systems that black can play. You know, Nepomniachtchi was the Carlsen's opponent. That's kind of like a little bit of a teaser for the upcoming Carlsen-Nepomniachtchi World Championship match from this Legends of Chess final back in late 2020. You know, black could have played the move e6 and, you know, after bishop d4, f4. A lot of players could just play d5 and transpose back into d4, d5 territory, which is a little bit outside the scope of this particular video. But if they go c5 instead, I want to show a few little tricks, because there is one little secret that very few London players actually know about, but if they knew about it, they would win so many games. And there's a lot of players, like the most common move actually at the lower levels of play is the move b6, but there have been a lot of grandmasters who have played this move as well. So what's the trick? Well, how about you pause the video, or even better, comment below with what move you would play in this position after 4 b6, and let's see if you can be smarter than most of the grandmasters who got this position as white. Now, if you want to discover your inner chess genius, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got it in the bottom right, little red subscribe thingy. And then ding ding that notification bell so that you can get a knockout on your opponents with my daily Grandmaster Chess videos. Alright, so hopefully you didn't just settle for like the normal one, like, yeah, I'm going to put my knight on d2, pawn on c3, bishop d3, h3, and close my eyes, you know, until the opponent makes a threat. And then I'm going to wake up out of my slumber. But instead of staying in your cave like a caveman, you could go for the caveman attack with knight to c3. The idea of knight c3 is that often you don't want to block that c-pawn in the London, but this is an exception, where after a6, like, they should go a6, because if they let you get the knight to b5, that's really bad news. Like, you're threatening a knight c7 fork, and black can't really stop it with d6 either, because then you just take c5, and, you know, dc5 is still allowing the knight c7 by renewing a communication of the bishop. But at bc5, yeah, you've got 3 attackers. They have only 2 defenders. So we take the free pawn, and yeah, we're just laughing at this point. So therefore, black would probably go a6, but then you can go d5. You get, you know, a good central space advantage like e4, and white's basically just better, because black sort of played this sort of Schmid-Benoni in a not very good way. So instead, that's why black should probably instead either, if he wants to roll the dice, go queen b6 and try to attack the pawn. Though I find that knight a3 and playing like a pawn sack does work pretty well in that case, so there is that. Or they can play a more solid move like cd4, and only then play the move of b6, which I think is a better move order, because now knight c3 is not as effective when you don't have the dc5 in different positions. I think the setup that allows black to equalize is probably the one where you go like h3, let's say, you know, c3, castle, and basically, you know, around this point, like if knight bd2, then this plan of playing bishop a6 is quite a nice one for black, where he ends up trading off our good bishop, not really allows us to get an easy attack on the king's side. And yeah, even though we can take on a6 in one go because we didn't play bishop d3, even so the position remains very solid. And if I'm being honest, I don't think white has any special advantage. It's only a very tiny pull for white here, and if black just brings the knight back to the queen side and goes for the queen side minority attack, then black is doing okay. So that's a line that can be a reasonable equalizer if you're looking for some against the London. But anyway, the game sort of moved g6, and this is, well, Nepomniachtchi mainly plays Grunfeld against 1d4, so it kind of makes sense he does it here as well. So that if white goes c4, he's not move ordered out of his pet opening. But Carlsen played bishop f4 and just played his London system. Bishop g7, e3. I mean, Carlsen is pretty standard. If they go d6, you do have the option of going for h3 first, just to make sure if knight h5 you can tuck the bishop away. But Carlsen takes a bit of a different approach in this game. Rather than playing the move h3 and trying to save his bishop, which is the way that I've normally played these positions as white, when I played the London a lot in the old days, back when I was enjoying playing chess and didn't hate every game that I lost. Well, instead, Carlsen decided to do something a little bit different with the move castles, and he's saying, you know what, I'm not afraid of your knight h5 attack. You're moving the knight a second time, and Nepo, I know that you're a ball attacking player, but you don't have the balls to play this. You don't have the cojones to play this against the world #1, me, Magnus Carlsen. But it turned out he did. He did play the move knight h5 because, I mean, if you play something like c5 instead as black, white can just play c3, not c4, that's shooting the pawn a little bit too far ahead, but just c3. I mean, queen b6 doesn't really do that much anymore because white can just defend the pawn pretty easily. And if you play some move like b6 instead, well, white can go h3 here and sort of go back to normal play like you're often going to see white. Play some moves like a4. Just try to sort of create some little weaknesses on the queen side. Or if they go a6, you can play like bishop h2. And often a good plan for white could be go queen b3 and try to pressure the pawn. Or you can even play moves like rook e1 and just try to get an e4, e5 for a bit more of a central approach. Certainly black is doing fine here, but it's a pretty safe position where the better player is going to win. They're very strategic. Black is definitely not getting his usual King's Indian sort of attacking ideas with like e5, f5 and all that kind of stuff. So black played knight h5 saying, I'm going to put the question to the bishop because you don't have an answer. Tick, 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 the clock is ticking. You'd better make a decision. Carlsen plays bishop to g5. We have h6. The bishop comes back to h4. Oh, g5, he really wants that bishop pair really badly. He wants it so bad he's even willing to weaken his king to get it. But here is where Carlsen found a really great move. Are you able to find it as well with white to play? Let's see. You can pause the video to get a bit more time to think about it while I sip on some water. Like, there's one little known secret of playing better chess. Just sip water all the time. It'll keep your brain hydrated. And so white decided, well, if you're going to go after my bishop, I'm going to make you pay the highest price possible, Nepo. I'm going to play the move knight f to d2. See, I really like it's such a difficult move. Like, I'm already struggling even just to say it. And the idea is that if black were to take that bishop, we take the knight, and look, you got the double pawns around the king. Not a good look, buddy. But to be fair, the bishop pair, they count for something as well. I think that if black plays a move like c5 or even h3 first, you can get that bishop kind of active. If white tries to block it with c3, put the pawns on the dark squares as usual. Black go h3, try to do a little disruption here. I think that once the knight gets to a square like f6 and you get like your queenside counterplay, black's probably doing okay. It's definitely a quite sharp position, so it's not like you're just playing like some boring London for a draw. We're not playing as a system opening, we're playing as a real fighting weapon, as shown by Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen. Now, also black would be tricky and try a move like knight f4. I think it was MVL who did this against Carlsen a game a while back. Carlsen went on to win that game, but if I'm being honest, I think that black should be fine. Like if you go knight d7 and e5, this will open up the center, and objectively black is doing okay. Though with the sort of dynamic structure, of course, white has a scope to play for the full point as well here. So, I mean, something like with the London, like obviously London's not going to force a win, but, if black doesn't know this theory, and very few players do, because, I mean, how often do you face the London in a game? Well, you can sort of then start to get an advantage. And that's what happened where the move knight f6 was a little bit imprecise by Nepo. Now white just keeps his bishop pair for free. And it's not so obvious to me what black gained from weakening the king side, other than, starting to look like, well, okay, my pawns are more advanced, they're going to give me extra space deep in the endgame. But bro, we're still in the middle game here. And after knight to c3, knight to c6, here is where Carlsen missed, I think, a little bit of an opportunity. You had a little chance here, Maggie. You could have gone for the move c4, brought out the Magsy Bogues, and if e5, you could go for d5, leave that bishop kind of stuck on this e5 point. So after knight to e7, you go knight to c3. Because I know why you didn't play it. You're worried about like some f5, f4, this kind of thing. Is it all that bad, though? Well, I guess you could go knight 7 and f5 and you can try to get this in. I know, it feels like black's got a kind of decent King's Indian, to be fair. If you have e4, you go f4 and you kind of bring the pawn storm happening. So I guess there's some potential for this for black, to be fair. So Carl says, no, I don't want to give you just like a good king's in here. I don't want to get just able to throw your pawn to the king with your eyes closed. Because I mean, you don't need like, 30 minutes on the clock in order to do such a thing. So he plays with him, knight to c3, super creative move, saying, I'm just going to develop my knight, I'm just going to let you get in your e5 push. And then he does the plot twist, d takes e5. Because I remember the Carlsen had a game against Aronian with a similar structure, where he went for something like knight c4 and tried to bring out the cavalry. But Black was able to get good counterplay. I mean, in the opposite, you're going to see Black go like d5, plonk a knight on e4. And I think that would be very healthy for Black, that would give you pretty decent counterplay. You're not really that afraid of the double pawns, because double pawns do give you an open file for the rook, so not the end of the world for Black. We had d takes e5, knight e5, and here is where Carlsen lit the board on fire. He didn't just play the passive h3, he played a move f4, hitting the knight, hitting the pawn, wanting to open up that king. He's saying, yeah, I weakened my king, but your king's going to down first. It's kind of like when you're doing like the barrel roll, like you're both on the barrel, you're both running, and you try to just go run really, really fast, hoping that they fall off before you do. Well, that's kind of what f4 is the move. And Nepo finds a really good reply. He doesn't play the move gf4, which would only help White to get his structure more solid, trade off that little weakling on e3. Instead, Nepo played the move knight eg4, hitting the backward pawn on e3, and he says, oh, you didn't see that, Carlsen. I'm hitting you. I've got the positional play. You got nothing. I banged out my move real fast because I'm super confident. Carlsen says, yeah, I'll just go rook f3. And after rook e8, here is where Carlsen remembered the famous words of Bent Larsen. With a knight on f8, there cannot be mate. Knight on f1, opponent is done. So he played the move knight to f1, guarding that king, guarding the pawn, and saying, how are you going to attack me now, Nepo? I know that it's all your only trick. You just want to attack. You just want to play fast. You just want to bluff. I know you play lots of Hearthstone and all these other computer games, but I just win fantasy football instead. Like, that's much more prestigious. But anyway, instead, well, Black could have played the move knight h7, and I have absolutely no idea why you would play the move knight h7 other than to free the bishop. But I guess there's a certain logic to it, actually. If White does play, some move like, I don't know, h3, well, then the knight can come back and at least you're not losing the knight. So I guess that's one positive thing about the move. And those are other really crazy things that can happen. Like, you're not going to believe this. Like, imagine if you play, like, king h1 or something, like some scaredy move. Then Black can give up the bishop for the knight. It's like, what are you doing? You're crazy. You're crazy. But then knight f6, the knight comes into the e4 outpost. The bishop looks like a complete moron on g3. The pawn is weak, and Black is actually better. Who would have guessed? Well, after knight 7, you could also be really sharp. You could play a move like e4 and just offer that pawn as a little debate. But anyway, this was a whole other story. It'd be a whole other game. It's something we may well see in the 2023 World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Outrage of Fallujah. Joke's on me for when people are watching this video in 2024 and Fallujah didn't actually play the match. But whatever. Well, it was actually 2022, but who cares? So alright, the game instead sort of moved knight h5. He's trying to go for a similar idea. Trying to also say, oh, I'm hitting the bishop, but the thing is, this bishop is also eyeing these guys over here. Like, these knights are in the bishop's sights. He's got the sniper ready, but the rook is in the way. Got to smash that window open first. So Carlsen found a really great move here. He played a move bishop to e1, saying, ooh, your knight's stuck on the edge. Like, what are you going to do now? I've got moves like h3, and ooh, your knight's going to get trapped. I'm going to win a piece, and all I need is a piece to win the game. I'm Magnus Carlsen. You can't stop me. So Black now here is where he made a blunder. Oh, blunder. Oh man, I thought that you were perfect, Nepo. I thought that you were going to be my hero, that you were going to beat Carlsen and show that, this sort of like this guy, like making these arrogant quips on Twitter, like he'd finally get put in his place. But no, the arrogance is completely justified after all. I guess that's what happens when you're best player world. You could say whatever you want and get away with it, kind of like Eminem. In any case, instead of the move f5, Black could have played the move g takes f4, but it's still not a really great position. I think Carlsen's already got this guy by the balls here. Because you see, now we don't have this weak pawn. You've got moves like h3 and you're still threatening to win that wretched knight on h5. Like, just horrible, horrible square for the knight. Like, what are you thinking, Nepo? And if you go like d5, like try and do a little decoy boot, offer a little bit of bait to try to get the fish to swim away. Or you go h3, knight f6, rook df2, and I mean, that knight's a goner. Like, how are you going to defend the knight? Like, what you got, big boy? You got nothing. You got nothing. But instead we had to move f5. He's trying desperately to save these knights. But it's not worth giving up your kingdom for a horse. Remember this, guys. I said it many times. I say it again. Because I know that not everybody gets to study Shakespeare at high school. And not everybody is so privileged to plunge the depth of Shakespeare's sheer genius. So in any case, then we had to move bishop c4. With the idea that if the king moves, you just kick the knight. And, the knights just look kind of stupid on in this case, you know, h3, knight f6, and hey, we can even go for an attack, like take, even something like rook f2, and, you know, I don't know why you play rook f2, but I guess you go bishop d3. You say this knight's paralyzed because he's stuck defending the buddy over here. You know, kind of like, you know, when you have that, like, that friend, you know, that kind of old friend from high school, and you know, they're dragging you down, like, they're not really matching, like, with your dreams. So you just kind of hang out with them anyway, because, like, oh, but they're my old friend from high school, like, I don't want to, you know, leave them, like, sort of, like, kind of familiar, but sometimes you just got to cut the ties or sever them, and it's like, no more. I'm going for the $1 billion valuation. You can enjoy packing those shelves. Not anything wrong with packing shelves. Like, of course, I'm joking a lot here. You're very welcome to pursue life as you please. I'm not going to judge. But anyway, after bishop c4, bishop e6, we kind of see that white and black are on a little bit of a different wavelength. Black's on a wavelength of how do I get in this horrible position and how do I try to, like, drag the game on a little bit longer. And Carlsen's like, let's collect that harvest. Let's reap what we sow. Let's go on the flow, yo. Oh, it's not a best rhyme, but, you know, I'm just freestyling here. And Carlsen is doing a better freestyle than me, because after knight here, he freestyled the move f takes g5. He freestyles the yum captures on f5, realizing this pawn is safe by the knight. This pawn's under attack, and the rest was just a matter of technique. The game ended bishop to h6, and then after g4, we see why Carlsen is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Rook to f3, queen to d7, the knight comes in at g3, eyeing those beautiful dark light squares that have been left behind by black. Rook a e8, white plays with bishop f2, trying to be solid. He could have been more aggressive, he could have put that queen in, hitting the knight, hitting the undefended pawn. Look at how many undefended pieces are in black's position, it's just sad. But instead he went bishop f2, and he won very, very fast, because Nepo just wanted to get the game over and done with, get, like, next game. So after queen c6, we had the move e4, and then after knight d7, and knight d5, like, white is just up a pawn. He's got the threat of rook c3 that really there isn't a good defense to, just going to pick up the pawn. Like, if you go knight c5, you're running into, like, knight f6 kind of stuff. Actually, it's true after knight e5 as well. So, Nepo decided to resign here. So, there you have it. That's how Carlsen showed why he is the GOAT. He smashed his player Ian Nepomniachtchi in just 27 moves with a white piece. And with the London, he smashed with 27 moves with the London. You thought the London led to long games? Not when Carlsen's playing. He smashes them. So make sure to go some smashing as well. Smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. Comment with what you loved about this video. Are you ready to start smashing with the London in your own games? So good luck playing bishop f4. Keep that London pride alive, and I will see you in the next video.